Greetings once again, Sonic heroes out there. Duuz-Diz-Din back again with another issue of Sonic the Hedgehog, Fang the Hunter. As Fang and his crew continue to search for the elusive 8th Chaos Emerald. But they're not the only ones on the hunt, as Sonic and Tails are doing their best to track down a supposed Eggman flying fortress that they saw disappear right before their very eyes. But Fang and the gang get the answers right from the source. After being captured by Dr. Eggman because they were investigating an old base of his, he tasked them with finding a mythical ship that he created that's in control of by the hard-boiled heavy, who continue to be elusive and for some reason do not report back into him about what they found. As Fang's crew manage to track down the ship, they are allowed to make their way further and further inside. Meeting with the Heavy King and his crew, they find that the gem that they've been searching for is none other than the warped topaz, well before Starline had ever found it. As it turns out, the hard-boiled heavies have once again come up with their own plans for domination, being very elusive to their master, and not wanting word to get back to Eggman. The heavies decide that it's time for this gang of hooligans to bite the big one. Will Fang and the gang get out of Dodge? And what about Sonic and Tails? Join me as I find out in this, the conclusion of Fang's hunt, won't you? I continue to love these cover pages. They're so retro anime, and I'm still shocked in finding out that that's the warped topaz Fang has. Alright, let's jump in. Our story is by Ian Flynn, pencils by Thomas Rothlenberger, inks by Rick Mack, colors by Valentina Pinto, layers by Sean Lee, editors David Mariette and, Choke? That's a different name. And production by Johanna Natalie. Fang and the gang, holding the warped topaz, find themselves surrounded by the hard-boiled heavy. Fang tells his crew, "Steady boys, let me think of a plan." Anivus Bean says, "Not to rush you, Fang, but please hurry," as the heavies get ready to move in, all at the command of the Heavy King. And the King commands, "Return the warped topaz. It would be a waste to have it atomized in the crossfire." Fang tips his hat saying, "Nah, I've got a foolproof plan for scenarios just like this." Bean brightens up at these words saying, "Finally, what are we doing?" Fang tells him, "We keep it simple. Run!" As Fang, Bean, and Bark make a run for it, Bean says, "Straightforward, effective, I like it." Much to the surprise of the hard-boiled heavies, and the Heavy King commands, "Destroy them. We'll worry about the gem later." And so Fang and his gang of hooligans do their best to avoid getting caught in the weapons of the hard-boiled heavies being fired in their direction. Bean takes out one, but Bark takes a little something to the behind. Bean turns to Fang saying, "Call for your bike, call for your bike!" And Fang lets off a whistle, but then Bean and Bark turn to each other going, "Well?" Fang shouts at Bean, "It's a big ship, we gotta meet her halfway." A disgruntled Bean says, "Forget Marvelous Queen, you oughta call it Lazy Prima Donna." And Fang says, "You take that back," only for them to turn back and notice that the Heavy Rider is hot on their trail. Ooh, but Bark plants his feet, turns, and readies himself. The Heavy Rider readies their flail, swirling it, saying, "How about you, cur?" But Bark manages to dodge the Heavy Rider's flail, grabs it by its chain, yanks the Heavy Rider off their Mount Jimmy, and sends them plummeting to the ground. Nice move. Bean turns back saying, "Woo! Hold him off, buddy. We'll be back for you." The Heavy King steps forward saying, "The rest of you get the other two. I will handle this one." And as the other heavies make their way off, Bark confronts the Heavy King, who asks Bark, "Any last words?" And naturally, Bark has none, as the Heavy King says, "Very well," and they engage. That is so metal. As Fang makes his way down the right of a corridor, Bean is looking behind, throwing bombs as he goes. And then suddenly Fang comes from the other direction, calling out, "This way, you mook!" And Bean says, I'm coming, sheesh." But as Bean looks around into where he is, he says, this kinda looks like a dead end." Fang gives a wry smile, and in a puff of magic, he unveils himself to be the Heavy Magician, saying, "What a marvelous choice of words." And as the heavy enforcer arrives on Bean's other side, he finds himself between two heavy places. As he backs into a wall, he laughs, "You're heavy magician, and you did some magic trickery. I never saw it coming. Hee hee hee." Meanwhile, Fang looks behind him saying, "Where did those two mooks go? Who's supposed to cover my escape?" Ooh, and he just narrowly avoids getting his head cut off by the heavy shinobi's sword. The heavy shinobi calls out, "Autumn Forgotten," swinging their sword once again at Fang, who ducks out of the way again, dropping the warped topaz. Oh, it's an ice sword. Cool. As Fang scrambles for the topaz, the heavy shinobi brings down their sword, saying, "Spring and summer are distant, winter's icy sting." As the heavy shinobi then uses their sword to freeze Fang in place in a block of ice. Meanwhile, Sonic and Tails into the tornado manage to track down the hard-boiled Heavy's airship. As Sonic calls out, "Yeah, there's our Phantom airship. Way to go, Tails," with Tails saying, "Thanks. Let's see what's going on with it." After they land, they look around, with Tails saying, "It looks like they're on high alert," but Sonic observes, saying, "There's nobody out here." Angrily, he says, "It's clearly a flying fortress. Where are the guards? The weapons? Where's the action?" And Tails points to a door, saying, "Maybe they're distracted by something. Let's head inside and see what we can find." Sonic follows Tails, sulking, saying, "Fine. I guess. Maybe there's some action below decks." Meanwhile, the heavy shinobi pushes forward a frozen Fang, causing him to crash into a wall. Though he does manage to break out, he drops the warped topaz. As it lands on the other side of the heavy shinobi, who readies themselves, Fang picks himself up, obviously in pain, saying, "You think you got me, but I have a surprise, Mook. See? My ride's here." As the marvelous queen rams into the back of the heavy shinobi, as Fang leaps into the air thanks to his tail. The heavy shinobi drops their sword, with Fang saying, "Ha, take that, ya haiku-lovin' gooba." Fang dashes for the shinobi's sword, and then uses it to freeze the shinobi in place. Fang then nuzzles the marvelous queen, saying, "And you were perfect. Such dramatic timing. Such precise vehicular violence. You've worked so hard. You deserve a treat." And he opens the hatch in the back, which... I feel like I could say some things about that. No, Fang, you don't want to do that. As he gets ready to enter the warped topaz, he says, "This bauble can warp this whole rig around. Want to see what it can do for you?" Meanwhile, the heavy enforcer threatens Bean with their rocket launcher, saying, "Surrender and I will use force." Bean questions, "Don't you mean ore?" The enforcer says, "I know what I said." Bean laments, saying, "Goodness, I'm trapped. One of my dinky little bombs ain't gonna cut it here. Better use a big one." And he materializes a massive bomb, much to the shock of the enforcer and magician, which utterly destroys the storage room. And Bean comes walking out, still on fire, twirling the hat of the heavy magician, only for Fang to suddenly pop in right in front of Bean. Bean excitedly says, "That's a new trick." While Fang says, "Yeah, takes a little getting used to." He then points to Bean's flaming tail, saying, "And you're on fire." Bean turns to it and says, "Only a little bit." Fang smiles, saying, "Well, I got the gem. It works like a charm, and we've overstayed our welcome. Time to warp out of here." Bean says, "What about Bark?" While Fang questions, "What about Bark?" Obviously the two, don't see eye to eye on that opinion. But Fang relents, saying, "Fine, you big baby. I'm sure he's fine." Bean then jumps in the passenger seat, as we see Bark standing his ground like, "I didn't hear no bell." Although he is in rough condition, while the heavy king simply wipes off his scepter, saying, "You fight with the strength and tenacity of a robot. You have my respect." It suddenly looks like Bark tries to grab the heavy king's scepter, but the heavy king slams Bark to the ground with it. And as he holds his scepter aloft, charging it with energy, he says, "Be honored. For I will give you a regal end." only for Bean and Bark to warp in on the Marvelous Queen, taking the Heavy King off guard. The Heavy King falls over as Bean races to Bark, calling out for him, while Fang dismissively says, "See, I told you he was fine." As Bean helps Bark up, Fang gives the Heavy King a salute, saying, "Hey, King Mook, thanks for telling me how the warp topaz works. It's gonna come in real handy." The Heavy King looks to Fang with fury in his eyes, saying, "You." But as the Heavy King laughs maniacally, ready to fire, the Hooligans warp away. "Oh, I get it. We can't really have them see any of these things before they see it later down the line." Oh man, that's crafty. Because Eggman, Sonic, and Tails only ever see the warp topaz in the future. Because as Sonic and Tails make their way to the containment sphere for the warp topaz, there's nothing there. Tails observes it, saying, "Well, this certainly looks like the main reactor, but it seems to be offline." And as Sonic faceplant, he says, "Starved for action, so incredibly bored." Tails flies down, telling him, "Well, this is certainly some kind of Eggman warship. We should bring it down. If I set this reactor to overload, we'd only have a few minutes to escape a fiery doom." Sonic picks himself up, saying, "You really are the best friend a guy could ask for." The Heavy King gets on his comm, saying, "All forces converge on those thieves. Do whatever it takes to..." But suddenly there's a loud kaboom that causes the ship to shake, much to the shock of the Heavy King, who says, "What now, what?" And as the entire ship starts to explode left, right, and center, the egg pawns fire at Sonic and Tails, with Sonic saying, "Woohoo, that got their attention." As he races through the gunfire, he bounds off the walls, destroying things as he goes, grabbing onto Tails' hand as they board the tornado and make their way off, avoiding gunfire as the ship goes down, splooshing into the waters below as Sonic gives the airship a wink as he leaves. And as Tails wipes his brow through his, pilot's helmet, he says, "Phew, we made it." Sonic gives him a double thumbs up, saying, "Way to salvage that lame adventure, buddy. Still, I can't shake the feeling someone did most of the work for us." As the Heavy King at the comms of the sinking battleship reports in to Eggman, saying, "Lord Eggman, a last test flight caught the attention of Sonic and Tails. They destroyed the central reactor. The heavy egg wing is a total loss. We will need to be recovered." Eggman tells him, "Oh, I'll get on that. As quickly as you return to base." Oh, as quickly as you returned to base, when he was telling them to. The Heavy King saying, "But we didn't..." Oh. It's like, yeah, you didn't return to base, so good luck out there, buddy. As we see some egg pawns. Oh, I keep calling them egg pawns. Egg robos, I mean. With some buckets trying to get the water out. Meanwhile, the Marvelous Queen appears in a clearing, having warped in. Fang laughing, going, "Ha ha ha, priceless," while Bean is about to hurl and Bark is hurting. But Fang cheers, saying, "Forget that stupid rumor about an 8th Chaos Emerald. This is already paying dividends." Although Bean freaks out, saying, "Forget about it. It's the hunt for that stupid thing that put us through all this." Oh, I didn't know they could detach like that. Bean detaches his sidecar from the Marvelous Queen, saying, "Forget it, forget you, I'm out of here." And as Bean and Bark fly off in their sidecars, Bean says, "Come on, buddy, let's go find something more fun anywhere else." While Fang can only shout, "You ingrates, I custom fitted those sidecars for you mooks." He then sulks, saying, "Oh, who needs them? All this means is I don't have to split up my bounties." But suddenly he receives a call. It's none other than Eggman, saying, "I'm having a bad day, so you better have some good news." Fang reports in, saying, relatively good. "We found your missing battleship. Turns out your haywired heavies went rogue." Eggman says, "I knew it. Good cronies are so hard to find these days." With Fang saying, "Tell me about it." And it's interesting how often they've worked together, especially recently with Sonic Superstars. Eggman says, "What about its strange flight pattern? Did you uncover what they were up to?" Fang looks around, saying, "I'm not much of a tech guy, Doc. I don't know what they had going on. And of course, he wouldn't tell him. We know that canonically he wouldn't. Eggman says, that fabled 8th Chaos, 8th Emerald. Fang, while still smiling, says, turns out I was chasing a fairy tale after all. Eggman eyes him, saying, I'm disinclined to believe you. Fang, while still smiling, cracks his finger, saying, believe what you want, but it's 100% true. There was no emerald there. And that is true. So now we're square and I'm moving on to my next gig. Eggman, wait, that kind of looks like the Superstar Island. Oh my god, is this set before? Oh my god, really? This was a lead into Sonic Superstars. I should have known. It wouldn't be Flynn if he wasn't tying it into some continuity. Yeah, North Star Islands. You see Eggman observing the North Star Islands, saying, well, since you aren't Disney, I could use your services again. I'm investigating a new island, and I could use an expert hunter. Fang rubs his hands with a smile, saying, yeah? I ain't working for favors on this one. Eggman, annoyed, says, fine, this time I'll actually pay you. Fang says, woo-hoo-hoo, tonight just keeps getting better. Send me the coordinates, I'll meet you there. And as he flies off, he says, no one to share the cut, a shiny new upgrade for my bike, a chance to test my skills. Fang the Hunter is back on top. To be continued in Sonic Superstars. Oh my goodness. That's interesting though. At what point did he end up losing it? Of course, leave it to Ian to always try to adhere to the continuity or the status quo. This is a good point for the hooligans to have broken up. Why we only see Fang and not Bean and Bark going into Superstars, but there's always the possibility of them reuniting somewhere down the line. It's also a good place to leave the hard-boiled heavies should they never appear again. Here's an explanation. But there's always the possibility of them appearing in something classic, or even, if Sega ever pulls their heads out of their butts, appearing in something more modern. Sega is currently trying to keep, modern interpretations and classic interpretations separate, and a bit of the never the two shall meet kind of thing, but certain elements will sometimes pop up, like the modern introduced Warp Topaz appearing in a classic story, or even Scrapnik Island, where a lot of classic badniks, such as Mecha Sonic, appearing in a more modern story. Ian has had a bit of trouble getting some of that stuff to jive in the past, but sometimes other creators are able to get Sega to agree to things that Ian can't. So that's the benefit of having multiple writers, is sometimes you can get things to go through for one person that another can't. Although it's weird that they didn't even advertise for the upcoming 69th issue of Sonic the Hedgehog. Again, this was a good story. It's interesting to have had a kind of prequel to the Superstars game, especially given the fact that this really derailed the main comic and was essentially an overglorified tie-in. Not saying it was bad, but again, it would have made sense or a side thing instead of usurping the main story. It's not bad. I'm just saying, it's kind of like the two hot dog situation. I would have liked to have been able to have both rather than just having one, because now I have to be worried about them doing this again somewhere down the line. It's just like, nah man, the main story has this great plot line going and I don't want to be derailed. It's always great when we have two books going at the same time and we have the occasional miniseries, but if we're going to end up interrupting the main plot of the main book, as good as a side story as these might be, I very much prefer to have my main title where I can get it. Especially with the little bit I know about what's coming up. Sonic Rider stuff, that's a great time, and Surge and her new outfit and all that I'm really looking forward to. But I am curious, how does Fang end up losing the Warp Topaz? From what I remember in Superstars, the little that I played, Fang doesn't warp around or anything. So either he never uses the upgrade when he's in the presence of Eggman, which, given some of the trip levels, he doesn't use it there either. Unless I'm forgetting something, I don't remember seeing him warp. So if there's something I'm missing, let me know in the comment section below. But who knows, maybe this means that we'll see Trip in some of the classic stories of Sonic the Hedgehog. Time will tell. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How did you feel about the finale to this story? It tying in with Sonic Superstars? Would you like to see Trip in the comics? Are you bummed that it seems that the hooligans have gone their separate ways, or do you think they'll reunite? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the ride. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I hope to see you later. Till then, bye-bye.